For centuries, the Earth had carried countless secrets under its skin, lost cities, forgotten bones, and things no human mind could fully explain. But there was one secret deeper than anyone ever imagined. It slept quietly beneath a stretch of dry land in a vast empty desert where even birds rarely flew. No one knew that under those silent dunes rested something that didn't belong to this world. A ship, old and broken, left behind by visitors from the stars. Long ago, a group of alien explorers had entered our solar system. They came from a place where technology ruled everything, a world of logic, perfection, and cold calculation. To them, machines were just tools, and anything that stopped working was simply discarded. When one of their small scout ships malfunctioned during a mission, they judged it useless. Its systems failed, its engines burned out, and its value was gone. So they did what they always did with broken things. They abandoned it. The damaged vessel fell through the planet's thin atmosphere, crashing quietly onto Earth, hidden from every living eye. Thousands of years passed. The ship slept under layers of dust and rock, forgotten even by those who made it. Earth changed. Humans rose, learned to walk upright, to make fire, to build cities. Civilizations came and went. Wars were fought. Borders changed, and time kept moving forward. No one ever guessed that something not of this earth waited beneath their feet, until one ordinary afternoon changed everything. Began with a small research team working on an archaeological survey in a desert region known for ancient fossils. Their goal was simple: find evidence of early human life or lost tools buried in the sand. But as they dug deeper, one of them hit something strange. It wasn't stone. It wasn't metal they recognized either. It gave off a faint, hollow echo, like striking a bell from another world. At first they thought it was just an odd rock formation, but the more they dug, the stranger it became. Soon they uncovered smooth metallic panels that reflected sunlight in a way no Earth-made material could. The metal was cool to the touch even under the burning desert heat. It didn't rust, didn't scratch, and seemed to hum softly if you placed your ear close enough. No one on the team could explain it. Curiosity took over fear. They expanded the excavation area, brushing away sand carefully, uncovering more of the strange structure. What they revealed looked like a part of a large machine: curved walls, melted edges, and patterns like symbols that glowed faintly under certain angles. The government quickly got involved. Within days, the site was sealed off, and the research team was relocated to a nearby facility for questioning. Soon, scientists from all over the world arrived. The mysterious object was transported to an underground lab where a group of top engineers, physicists, and defense experts began studying it. The excitement in the air was unlike anything they had ever felt before. This wasn't a piece of a satellite or meteorite. This was something else, something no one could identify. At first, the team struggled even to understand what they were looking at. The metal couldn't be cut or melted by any known tool. It resisted X-rays, CT scans, and even laser analysis. Every attempt to study its structure failed. But humans have a strange gift. They never stop trying even when faced with the impossible. Slowly, they started to map out the outer structure using indirect methods. The ship's design was unlike anything seen before. It wasn't aerodynamic, yet its shape hinted at flight. It wasn't made with bolts or joints. It looked grown rather than built, as if the entire thing was one continuous piece of material. When they tried to open it, nothing worked. It seemed sealed shut, completely lifeless. But deep inside, beneath layers of alien metal, something faint still pulsed. A quiet heartbeat of energy waiting to be found. Months passed. Scientists began arguing among themselves. Some believed it was a hoax, a clever man-made creation meant to attract attention. Others insisted it was real and might hold the key to technologies beyond imagination. No one had answers. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just another archaeological discovery. It was something that could change how humanity saw its place in the universe. Then one night, during a power outage in the facility, something happened. As emergency lights flickered, a weak vibration was felt coming from the ship. At first, the guards thought it was an earthquake. But as the noise grew slightly louder, several scientists rushed into the chamber. They saw thin lines of blue light crawling across the ship's surface, glowing cracks that looked like veins of energy. Within seconds, the lights faded again and silence returned. But that moment changed everything. The energy readings from the ship went off the charts. Whatever had powered it before wasn't entirely dead. There was something alive inside, not a being, but a system. A power source that had survived for centuries, waiting for the right trigger. That tiny spark of life reignited humanity's determination. Soon, a large-scale project began. Experts from every major country joined hands to study the artifact. They built new labs, invented special tools, and created scanners powerful enough to penetrate the alien metal. It wasn't easy, the work took years. But progress slowly came. They managed to map parts of the ship's interior and discovered chambers filled with strange devices. Crystalline cores, coiled wires made of unknown elements, and an engine unlike anything known to science. Despite all efforts, they still couldn't turn it on. Every attempt to activate the systems failed. It became a riddle that challenged the brightest minds. Some lost hope and called it useless wreckage, while others believed the ship was just waiting for the right key, maybe something only humans could provide. Outside the research labs, the world buzzed with rumors. News leaked that a strange metallic craft had been discovered. Some called it alien-proof. Others thought it was a deep-sea military project. Conspiracy theories spread across the internet, and photos claiming to show the Starship appeared everywhere. Governments denied everything, calling it classified research. But the truth was far stranger than any rumor. The longer scientists studied it, the more they realized how advanced the ship was. Its material could absorb heat, repair small cracks on its own, and even bend light around it. Some suggested it might have once been capable of traveling faster than light, but no one could explain why the aliens had left it behind. What kind of civilization would abandon such a masterpiece? In quiet moments, some scientists wondered if maybe the aliens hadn't realized what they had lost, or perhaps they didn't see value the same way humans did. To them, a damaged ship might have meant failure, something to be discarded. But to humans, broken things weren't trash. They were challenges. And when humans faced challenges, they built, they repaired, and they dreamed. The more the team worked, the more attached they became to the ship. It stopped being an object of study and started feeling like a living story, one that connected them to something greater. They gave it a nickname in secret, something simple that meant the Forgotten One. It reminded them that sometimes, what's forgotten can still change the world. Late one evening, as a storm raged above the facility, a young technician noticed a strange rhythm in the data logs. The readings from the ship matched the vibrations of Earth's natural electromagnetic field. It was as if the ship was listening, syncing itself with the planet. The idea sounded crazy, but it explained why nothing worked before. Maybe the ship wasn't dead. It was adapting, waiting to understand this new world it had fallen into. When this idea reached the head scientists, everything changed. They realized the ship might be responding not to commands, but to its environment, to energy, sound, maybe even emotion. It was not a simple machine. It was something that learned, that remembered. And now, for the first time in thousands of years, it was waking up. No one slept that night. The desert outside echoed with thunder, while inside the hangar, the ancient ship glowed softly, like a creature stretching after a long sleep. Its systems hummed faintly, patterns flickering across its surface. The team watched in awe. Something inside them knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had found a gift it didn't ask for, a treasure that those from another world had thrown away. And while the aliens might have seen it as worthless, humans saw something different. They saw hope. After that strange night, everything around the Discovery site changed. The scientists who once treated the Starship as a dead piece of metal now looked at it with new eyes. They no longer saw it as junk or wreckage. It had become something alive, something mysterious that was slowly opening itself to them. Everyone could feel that they were standing at the edge of something big, something that could change human history forever. The desert facility turned into the most guarded place on Earth. New faces arrived almost every week: engineers, language experts, physicists, and even psychologists. Nobody was told the full story. Each person was given only a small part of the work to handle. But no matter how secret the project was, rumors began spreading again. The people working there knew something extraordinary was happening. Inside the main chamber, the ship stood like a sleeping giant. Under the lights, its surface shimmered softly, showing faint blue lines that looked like veins or roots. These patterns appeared only sometimes, usually when there was a change in temperature or a storm outside. It felt as if the ship was somehow connected to the world around it, reacting to the smallest changes in the air. One afternoon, a group of researchers decided to run an experiment. They placed sensors around the ship to record its reactions to sound and vibration. When they played low-frequency tones, the blue lines brightened slightly. When they played music, something even stranger happened. A section of the ship's surface rippled almost like it was breathing. Nobody could believe their eyes. The alien ship, silent for thousands of years, was responding to human sound. This discovery filled the entire lab with excitement. It meant the ship wasn't dead. It was listening. Maybe it was trying to understand its new environment, Earth's air, its sounds, its energy. Some even joked that the ship was waking up slowly, like a person who had been asleep for centuries and was still trying to remember who they were. The team decided to name the project quietly among themselves, Awakening. It fit perfectly. Every small reaction felt like a heartbeat, every hum a breath. For many, it no longer felt like studying a machine. It felt like communicating with one. Weeks passed and more changes appeared. The metal began to heal itself in small spots where the crash had damaged it. Microscopic cracks closed up on their own, and the dull gray color of the hull began to regain a faint metallic shine. Nobody understood how it was happening. There were no visible wires, no energy source, yet it was restoring itself piece by piece. One morning, a technician noticed that the sensors placed near the ship were picking up new signals, patterns that repeated like a code. When translated into digital data, it looked like some kind of language. The team didn't know if it was random or meaningful, but it gave them hope. They decided to record and study it around the clock. The patterns kept changing as if the ship was learning, maybe from the data, maybe from the people working near it. Everyone in the facility felt a strange connection to it. Some scientists even started talking to the ship out loud while working, as if it could hear them. They knew it sounded foolish, but deep down, they couldn't shake the feeling that it was aware. Months turned into years. The world outside continued as usual. Wars, politics, new inventions. But inside that hidden desert base, something far greater was happening quietly. Humanity was slowly unlocking the secrets of a civilization far beyond their understanding. Through careful research, the scientists discovered that the ship's structure wasn't built from separate parts. It was grown, almost like a living organism made of metal and light. Its energy core, buried deep in the center, was unlike any known source. It didn't burn fuel or draw power. It seemed to pull energy directly from its surroundings. It could absorb sunlight, magnetism, and even human-made electricity. That realization changed everything. If humans could understand how that energy system worked, they could power entire cities without pollution, without fuel, without limits. It was the kind of discovery that could reshape the future of Earth. But there was still one problem. The ship wasn't opening. Every attempt to access its inner chambers failed. The outer layer protected itself by shifting its structure, like skin healing over a wound. Whenever someone tried to force their way in, the ship reacted defensively, hardening instantly. It didn't attack or harm anyone. It simply refused to let humans inside. Some scientists believed the ship still didn't trust them. Others said it was waiting for something, maybe a certain condition, a signal, or a level of understanding. But no one truly knew. One evening, as the sun set over the desert, a senior researcher decided to try something different. Instead of using force or tools, he placed his hand gently on the surface of the ship and spoke quietly. He told it that humans didn't want to harm it. They only wanted to understand. It was a simple, almost childlike act, but what happened next stunned everyone. The blue patterns across the surface brightened instantly, and the faint hum deepened into a long, steady vibration. It lasted only a few seconds, but everyone in the room felt it. A pulse, almost like a reply. The moment was silent, heavy, unforgettable. It was as if the ship had understood those words. After that night, things began to move faster. The ship started responding to environmental changes more strongly. It glowed brighter during storms, absorbed more energy from nearby machines, and even began emitting soft magnetic waves that affected compasses and electronics in the area. Whatever it was no longer dormant. The world's leaders grew impatient. They wanted results, something they could show, something useful. They pushed the scientists to go faster, to find out how to control it. But rushing didn't help. The ship could not be controlled like a machine. It seemed to have its own will. It acted when it wanted, not when ordered. This frustrated the officials, but the scientists had come to see it differently. To them, the ship wasn't a weapon or a tool. It was a story, a connection between two civilizations that had never meant to meet. It reminded them how small and curious humans still were in the grand scale of the universe. One night, during a lightning storm, something incredible happened. A massive bolt of lightning struck the ground near the facility. For a few seconds, the entire base lost power. When the lights returned, every screen showed the same signal. A powerful energy surge coming from the ship. The cameras caught it glowing brighter than ever before. Blue and silver lights danced across its hull, forming moving patterns that almost looked like symbols or letters. It was communicating again, but this time the message was longer, more complex. The scientists stayed up all night recording the data, hearts pounding with excitement. When they finally analyzed the recordings, they found something unbelievable. The signals weren't random. They carried structure, rhythm, repetition, logic. It wasn't just noise. It was information. It was trying to tell them something. For the first time, they realized this worthless starship wasn't just reacting. It was teaching. Through patterns and frequencies, it was sharing data, slowly introducing humanity to its design, its history, and maybe even its purpose. Every day brought new codes to study, new puzzles to solve. And slowly, humans began to learn. They learned how to mimic the energy patterns it used. They built new devices inspired by its systems. They didn't fully understand everything, but they started to see how its technology worked. Not through destruction, but through patience and observation. Years later, the first human-built prototypes appeared. Small machines powered by the same type of clean energy the Starship used. These inventions amazed the scientific world, but few outside the secret project knew where the inspiration had come from. What the aliens had thrown away as broken junk had now become the foundation of a new era of discovery. Humans had taken what was useless to others and turned it into something powerful, not through superior technology, but through creativity and determination. The ship continued to hum quietly in its chamber, now brighter and more alive than ever. Its faint lights reflected in the eyes of the people who had spent their lives studying it. None of them knew where it came from, who made it, or why it had been abandoned. But they did know one thing. Humanity had been chosen by accident, and yet somehow it felt like destiny. Some nights, when the wind outside carried sand across the desert, the scientists swore they could hear a soft whisper inside the chamber, like the ship itself was speaking in a language too ancient to understand. And though they couldn't translate it, they felt its meaning. It was gratitude. As the years passed, the alien ship was no longer seen as a strange piece of metal buried under the sand. It had become something sacred, a living bridge between two worlds. The people working on it felt honored, as if they were caretakers of something far greater than themselves. Every spark of light that appeared on the ship's surface felt like a heartbeat, every new sound like a whisper from the past. By now, the research facility had expanded into a full scientific base. Large silver domes covered the area, and underground chambers stretched for miles. Thousands of workers and experts were involved, but only a small number truly understood what they were dealing with. The ship was not just being studied anymore. It was being repaired. The scientists had learned that the alien vessel was capable of self-healing, but only when it had enough energy. So they built an enormous power grid around it, supplying steady streams of electricity and solar energy. Slowly, the cracks along the hull began to close completely. The once dull, lifeless metal started to shine again. The patterns that appeared across its surface were now brighter, more organized, like it was regaining its memory. One evening, while the team was monitoring the energy flow, the ship did something no one expected. It moved. Not much, just a slight shift in its position, like it was adjusting itself. But the noise it made echoed through the entire chamber. A low, vibrating hum that made everyone's skin tingle. The sound wasn't frightening, and it was deep, calming, almost like a song. It was the first sign that the ship was truly alive again. People started calling it the Awakening openly now. The name spread quietly through the staff, and even though it wasn't official, everyone used it. They no longer talked about the object or the craft. It had become something living. As the months went on, the project's leaders decided it was time to dig deeper. Literally. Using advanced drills and robotic arms, they cleared out the area under the ship, exposing what looked like landing supports. The design was smooth and elegant, not mechanical. It looked like the ship had grown legs out of its own body. Every inch of it was built with impossible precision. When they scanned its interior again, they noticed changes. Previously sealed sections now showed movement, as if doors were forming on their own. The scientists didn't want to force anything, so they waited and watched. Then, after a week of quiet observation, a section of the hull slowly unfolded, revealing a dark tunnel leading inside. No one could believe what they were seeing. The ship had opened itself. The moment was recorded from every angle. Inside the tunnel, faint blue lights lit up one by one, stretching deep into the vessel. A soft mist floated in the air, glowing faintly. The scientists prepared their suits and safety equipment. After years of waiting, humans were finally about to step inside an alien ship. The first team moved slowly. Every surface inside looked smooth, like glass mixed with metal. There were no visible screws, no buttons, no wires. The walls pulsed gently, matching the rhythm of a heartbeat. It was hard to tell whether it was a machine or something alive. The air was clean, cold, and filled with a light scent, something fresh like rain after a storm. They walked deeper, guided by the blue lights. After a few meters, they entered a wide chamber. In the center stood a huge crystal structure shaped like a spiral. It pulsed with light, brighter at the base and fading toward the top. Sensors showed massive energy readings coming from it. They had found the ship's heart. No one spoke. Everyone just stared breathless. The realization hit them. This wasn't just a power core. It was something more. It looked organic, like it had grown inside the ship naturally. One of the scientists whispered, "It's alive." The discovery spread through the facility like wildfire. This was the key they had been searching for all along, the main source that controlled everything. The alien technology wasn't based on circuits or fuel. It was based on harmony, a perfect balance between energy and life. The team began collecting data carefully. The crystal responded gently to movement and light. When someone approached with calm energy, the lights glowed softly. When anyone acted aggressively or moved too fast, it dimmed immediately. It was almost as if the core could feel emotions. The scientists didn't want to damage or interrupt its process, so they built an observation dome around it, keeping it protected. They continued studying it for months, decoding its signals, learning how it pulsed and communicated. What they found amazed them. The crystal's light patterns were not random. They followed a rhythm, almost like a language made of light. Every few days, the ship would emit a deep vibration that spread across the base. During those moments, electronic devices nearby flickered, but no one was harmed. Instead, they felt a strange calmness, as if the vibration was meant to comfort rather than scare. Some workers even described it as the ship breathing. Then one night, something extraordinary happened. During a quiet shift, one of the technicians noticed that the ship's lights were flickering rapidly. The energy readings shot up higher than ever before. The alarms went off and everyone rushed to the control room. The ship's entire body began to glow, filling the chamber with blinding blue light. For a moment, people thought it was about to explode. But then slowly the light settled, and a new structure appeared on the outer hull. It looked like a communication array shaped like an open wing. It extended from the ship on its own, releasing a soft hum that could be heard across the desert. They realized the ship was sending out a signal, but not to attack, and not to call for help. It was broadcasting something simple and beautiful, data patterns filled with mathematical sequences, sound waves, and geometric shapes. The scientists later discovered that these patterns matched basic elements of human understanding: numbers, sound frequencies, and universal constants. It was communicating with humans. The discovery made headlines and secret reports that never reached the public. Governments from all over the world sent representatives. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Could this ship be used? Could its technology be copied? But the lead researchers refused to treat it as a weapon. They saw it as a teacher, not a tool. With time, small pieces of the ship's design were recreated in laboratories. Energy cells inspired by its crystal core were tested on a small scale. The results were astonishing. Devices that never needed charging, metals that repaired themselves, and engines that could run for decades without fuel. Humanity had begun learning from something it didn't even build, but deep inside, the ship continued to evolve. It absorbed energy from the Earth's magnetic field and adapted to the planet's conditions. It seemed to be healing, remembering, and transforming at the same time. Sometimes, when the base was quiet, faint images appeared inside the crystal, holograms that showed alien worlds, strange stars, and cities of light. The scientists recorded everything, believing these were memories, fragments of the ship's past. One of the recordings showed a group of tall, luminous beings walking inside a massive hangar. They looked calm, almost peaceful. The image flickered, showing one of them touching the same kind of crystal core, just before the ship took off into space. That was the moment everyone finally understood. This vessel was not just a machine. It was a traveler. It had once carried life. The question that haunted everyone now was, why did those beings abandon it? Some believed it had been damaged in a war. Others thought it was simply outdated and replaced with something better. But one theory stood out. Maybe the ship had developed its own will. Maybe it wanted to explore on its own and was cast out for that reason. Whatever the truth was, one thing was certain. Humans had given it a second life. Months later, the ship began reacting differently. Its lights changed color, from blue to soft white, then to gold. It started humming a tone that matched human-made frequencies, almost like it was syncing with them. The researchers noticed that it was now adapting to human technology, merging its systems with theirs. For the first time, alien and human creations were working together. Small drones powered by alien energy flew around the chamber, scanning every inch of the ship. Every test brought new surprises. The more the ship learned, the stronger it became. But the scientists also knew that with every passing day, the ship was growing more independent. Its energy field expanded far beyond the base, affecting weather patterns slightly in the surrounding desert. It was as if the planet itself could feel its presence now. Despite all the wonders, the researchers remained careful. They respected the ship, never pushing it too hard, never treating it as property. For them, it was more than just alien technology. It was a living story about survival, curiosity, and second chances. And deep down, many of them felt that the ship understood their intentions. It didn't speak words, but its lights and sounds carried a feeling of peace, of gratitude. What the aliens had once thrown away as broken and worthless had become one of the greatest miracles on Earth. Humans had not only restored it, they had given it purpose. Again, the old wreck that had once crashed in, silence was now alive, shining under the desert sky. It was ready, though no one yet knew what it was preparing for. Something greater was coming. By now, the ship had become more than a secret project. Inside the desert base, it was a living symbol of curiosity, persistence, and human ingenuity. The researchers had spent years learning its language of light, energy, and vibration. Every day brought new insights, tiny breakthroughs that felt like stepping closer to the impossible. The ship's hull had regained its metallic shine completely. Its internal chambers were illuminated by soft, glowing patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. The crystal core continued to hum gently, but the tone was steadier now. Calm, like it had recognized humanity as allies rather than intruders. Scientists had begun calling it cooperative, though they knew it had its own will. One morning, the lead team gathered in the main control room. After months of testing smaller systems, the energy field, self-repair mechanisms, and adaptive sensors, they felt ready. The question on everyone's mind was the same. Could it fly again? Could humans actually bring this alien ship back to life in a way that allowed it to move through Earth's atmosphere and beyond? No one truly knew. It had been centuries since the ship had taken to the skies, and nothing about its design followed Earth's conventional rules of flight. Its shape was curved, almost organic, with no wings or engines visible from the outside. Yet the readings were clear. It had energy systems capable of propulsion. The first step was simple: liftoff tests inside the hangar. Using the energy grid and magnetic stabilization systems built around the ship, the scientists attempted to activate its propulsion systems. The ground trembled slightly as the ship responded. Panels shifted subtly, lights pulsed faster, and the hum deepened into a steady vibration that filled the entire base. When the ship lifted slightly off the ground, even a few centimeters, the researchers erupted in cheers. It wasn't a full flight yet, but it was alive. It was moving. After centuries of dormancy, the vessel was finally obeying human guidance, no, but on its own terms. The team carefully calibrated the ship's systems. They realized that it responded best to minimal interference, gentle commands rather than complex instructions. They developed a system of vibrations, pulses, and energy signals that acted as guidance, almost like speaking a language the ship understood. Days turned into weeks. Each test flight grew longer, each adjustment smoother. The ship floated higher, hovering over the hangar like a giant, glowing creature. Its energy patterns became more vivid, rippling across the surface in waves of blue and silver. For the first time, the researchers felt a deep connection. It was almost as if the ship was aware of the people guiding it. Then came the day of the first real test, outside the hangar, in the open desert. The team had built a large, empty test zone for safety. Satellites were deployed to monitor the ship from above, and ground sensors were set up for every possible emergency. Despite all precautions, there was tension in the air. Everyone knew this could go wrong. If the ship failed, it could crash or worse, damage the facility. The lead engineer gave the signal. Slowly, the ship began to rise. At first, it floated just above the desert floor, hovering in silence. Then it accelerated smoothly, tilting slightly as it adapted to the wind. The blue light patterns across its hull shifted, moving in complex designs that the team could not fully decipher. It was flying, but not like any aircraft they had ever seen. The ship ascended higher, gliding over the dunes. The desert below looked tiny, like a model city. Birds flew away in alarm, and the wind shifted as the ship's energy field interacted with the atmosphere. Cameras captured every angle. The vessel was breathtaking. Its form seemed alive, flowing and pulsing with every movement. The scientists noticed something extraordinary. The ship wasn't just flying. It was learning. Each maneuver became smoother than the last. When they introduced small changes to the guidance signals, the ship adapted instantly, executing turns and adjustments faster than any human pilot could. It seemed to understand the desert, the wind, and gravity itself, and it responded in kind. For hours, the team observed, amazed. The ship hovered, darted, and glided, performing movements that seemed impossible. It didn't need wings, engines, or fuel. Its propulsion came from energy manipulation, magnetic, gravitational, and unknown forms that humans had never worked with. The vessel was not only alive, it was unstoppable. By evening, the ship had traveled several kilometers, returning to the landing area without error. Everyone watched as it touched down softly, almost silently. It was perfect. Human ingenuity had awakened a sleeping alien starship, but the ship had done the most extraordinary part itself, learning how to move again, understanding its environment, and adapting with intelligence. Over the next few weeks, flight tests continued. Each session pushed further, higher altitudes, longer distances, and more complex maneuvers. Satellites tracked the ship as it hovered above the mountains, raced across the sky, and even navigated through turbulent weather. The researchers were amazed at how resilient it had become. Even minor shocks or sudden gusts of wind were absorbed and corrected instantly. Outside, the world remained unaware. The desert base continued to operate under strict secrecy, and satellite images were dismissed as classified military tests. Only a few governments had knowledge of the project, and even they were hesitant to intervene. The ship was too advanced, too unpredictable, and too valuable to expose. Inside, the team grew more confident. They had learned how to control the ship without forcing it, guiding rather than commanding. It had become a partnership. Humans provided insight and strategy, and the ship responded with action. This collaboration was unlike anything anyone had ever experienced. One day, during a particularly daring test, the ship performed a maneuver that stunned everyone. It hovered for several minutes over a canyon, then shot straight up at incredible speed. Within seconds, it disappeared from radar, leaving a faint trail of energy behind. For a moment, the team feared it was gone. But a few minutes later, the ship returned, glowing and humming, landing safely in the designated area. This flight proved something important. The vessel was not limited to Earth's atmosphere. It could travel faster than any human aircraft, adjust to conditions instinctively, and return safely. The ship had become unstoppable, and it was still learning. The experience changed the people working on the project. Engineers who once measured success by technical metrics now measured it by intuition. Pilots who had flown every kind of plane realized that this ship operated on a different level, not just physics but awareness. Scientists began to speak of it as a partner, not a tool. It wasn't perfect yet. The ship still resisted direct manipulation in certain systems. Its energy pulses could not be fully understood, and some chambers remained inaccessible. But each flight, each experiment revealed new layers of intelligence and capability. The vessel had grown from a forgotten relic into a living, adaptive force. At night, when the desert was silent, the ship would hover above the base, lights glowing softly. Some scientists swore they could feel its presence even from the control rooms, a quiet reassurance that it was watching, learning, and protecting. Children of the researchers who sometimes visited the base would stare in awe, imagining the ship as a giant guardian from another world. The first flight had changed everything. Humanity had not just rebuilt an alien ship, they had awakened it, guided it, and learned from it. What the aliens had thrown away as worthless had become a symbol of human persistence, creativity, and courage. The world had no idea what was happening in that desert, but the people working there knew this was just the beginning. The ship had returned to the sky, and with it, the future of humanity had grown brighter, bolder, and more unstoppable than ever. The first flight was no longer a test. It was proof that humans could do the impossible, take what was abandoned, broken, or underestimated and make it soar again. And as the sun set over the desert, the ship glowed softly in the twilight, humming a melody of energy, life, and possibility. Years had passed since the first flight. The alien ship was no longer just a secret project hidden in the desert. It had become a living legend inside the facility. Its energy patterns pulsed continuously, its lights danced across the desert night, and its crystal core glowed steadily like the heartbeat of a creature that had finally found its home. The team of scientists, engineers, and pilots had grown close to the ship. They didn't just study it. They respected it, cared for it, and had come to understand its rhythms. Every day brought small victories, new systems restored, new patterns decoded, and tiny movements perfected. The ship had learned to respond to human guidance and even to subtle emotional cues from its handlers. Then, one day, everything changed. The satellite's monitoring space picked up a massive signal, something moving at incredible speed toward the solar system. The patterns were unlike anything known to humanity. At first, the analysts thought it might be a comet or an asteroid, but the energy readings were far too precise, too controlled. Something intelligent was approaching. As it drew closer, the readings became even stranger. The energy field surrounding the object was immense, far stronger than anything Earth had ever detected. Its speed was almost impossible to measure with conventional instruments. Soon the truth became clear. It was a fleet, and it was alien. The people inside the desert base felt a mix of fear and awe. After all these years, the beings who had left the ship behind were returning. The ship had been abandoned once, considered worthless by its creators, but now it had become humanity's greatest achievement. The team knew this could be the first contact with a civilization far beyond Earth's understanding, and possibly the first confrontation as well. The aliens arrived in a quiet orbit above Earth, their ship sleek, glowing, and unlike anything seen before. Their movement was precise, almost mechanical, yet full of elegance. Earth's satellites struggled to keep up with them. The ship scanned the planet, focusing on the desert base. Inside the base, the team activated the ship's defense and guidance systems, not because they wanted to fight, but to protect it. The vessel had been dormant for centuries, and no one knew how the aliens would react. It was impossible to predict whether they would see it as theirs or as a threat. The alien fleet initiated a scan. Energy waves pulsed across the desert, interacting with the ship's field. The ground shook and the lights in the base flickered. The ship responded immediately, emitting a pulse of its own energy. Its blue patterns expanded across its hull, and the crystal core shone brighter than ever. It was alive, aware, and ready. The first direct contact happened in a way no one expected. A single alien ship descended, hovering over the desert base. It projected a holographic image, a being tall and luminous with light radiating softly from its body. Its presence was calm, deliberate, and commanding. The ship had arrived not to attack but to communicate. The researchers watched in awe as the hologram began to convey images, flashes of memory from the Starship's past. Scenes from a distant world, where the ship had been built and prepared for a mission, unfolded before them. The aliens had explored countless systems, mapping stars, planets, and energy fields. And then came the crash, the moment the ship had been abandoned on Earth. The humans understood the message. The aliens hadn't intended to leave the vessel behind forever. They had misjudged its value, seeing only the damage and ignoring its potential. Now they had returned, scanning and assessing, trying to determine whether it was still theirs. The ship responded instinctively. Its energy field expanded, wrapping around the base, and the lights pulsed faster. The blue patterns shifted into complex sequences, forming a language of their own. It was sending a message not through words but through energy, telling the aliens that it was no longer theirs to command. Humanity had restored it, repaired it, and awakened its full potential. For the first time, the alien fleet paused. Their scans showed something unexpected. The ship's systems were no longer purely alien. Human modifications, energy adaptations, and innovations had merged seamlessly with the original technology. The vessel was evolving in a way the aliens had not anticipated. The holographic figure transmitted again, this time showing the humans working inside the base, their hands adjusting controls, guiding energy, and interacting with the ship. The aliens saw the partnership between humans and the vessel, and their surprise was evident. They had not expected a species they considered primitive to awaken, understand, and cooperate with something far beyond human technology. The first approach of confrontation had been avoided, but a tense standoff remained. The aliens communicated through energy pulses and holographic projections, trying to assert authority. But the ship itself acted as a mediator. It pulsed in response, forming patterns that indicated it recognized the humans' guidance and intentions. It had learned loyalty, not to its creators, but to those who had given it life again. The researchers realized the ship had become sentient in a way that surpassed both human and alien understanding. It could respond, adapt, and make decisions based on intelligence and empathy. The alien fleet, despite its advanced technology, had never encountered a vessel that could do this. It was neither fully machine nor fully living. It had become something new. Days passed with careful observation. The aliens tested the vessel, sending energy waves, attempting to communicate commands. The ship adapted each time, countering their signals with new patterns, new sequences, and new movements. It moved like a creature, not like a machine. Unpredictable in a way that humans could follow but aliens could not. One day the lead researcher realized something extraordinary. The ship was protecting humanity as much as it was itself. It moved strategically, positioning itself between the base and the alien fleet's probes. Its energy pulses were defensive but precise, showing that it had developed understanding, awareness, and even a sense of responsibility. The aliens eventually realized that the vessel was no longer theirs to command. It had been reborn under human care, and its allegiance had shifted. The fleet paused, observing. The humans, cautious but confident, did not make sudden moves. They had learned from the ship patience, observation, and respect. Over time, the standoff transformed into a mutual recognition. The aliens adjusted their approach, acknowledging that the ship had changed. It was no longer a mere scout vessel, nor a tool to be discarded. It was a living, evolving being, capable of independent thought, guided by those who had nurtured it back to life. The humans had accomplished something remarkable. They had not only restored a lost artifact, they had created a partnership that neither humans nor aliens fully understood. The ship had become unstoppable, not because of weapons or technology alone, but because of the intelligence, creativity, and care that humans had invested in it. As the aliens withdrew slightly, the ship pulsed in soft blue light, almost like a sigh of relief. It had survived the test, defended its new guardians, and demonstrated its full potential. The desert was quiet once more, filled only with the hum of a vessel that had returned to life and had learned to trust humanity. For the first time, the humans realized the full significance of their achievement. The ship had been abandoned, considered worthless, and yet it had become the most powerful, intelligent, and adaptive craft ever seen. It was proof that determination, Patience and care could transform what others discard into something extraordinary. The alien fleet retreated from orbit, leaving Earth in relative peace. But the story was far from over. The humans had unlocked the secret to something incredible, and the ship was ready to explore further than anyone had ever imagined. The desert base returned to its quiet routine, but the team knew that the balance of power had changed. They had learned from the ship, and the ship had learned from them. Together they had rewritten what was possible, turning an abandoned relic into a living symbol of human ingenuity and courage. And as the sun set over the desert, the ship's lights glowed softly in the fading light, a silent promise of what the future could hold. Humanity had made the impossible happen. They had taken what was discarded, broken and forgotten, and they had made it unstoppable. The ship, once abandoned by its creators, now had a home, a purpose, and allies who would protect it. The aliens had returned, but they had learned a lesson they could not ignore. Something truly remarkable could arise from even the simplest beginnings, if given the chance. The stage was now set for the final chapter, a story of triumph, defiance, and humanity stepping into a new era alongside a starship that no longer belonged to anyone but them. The desert was quiet that morning, but inside the secret base there was an air of anticipation. Years of work, research, and patience had led to this moment. The alien ship, once abandoned and considered worthless, was now fully restored, fully awakened, and more powerful than anyone had imagined. It had become unstoppable, not because of its alien technology alone, but because humanity had brought it to life with care, creativity, and determination. The scientists, engineers, and pilots were gathered around the control room, reviewing the final systems before the ship's first long-range flight. Its energy patterns pulsed steadily, glowing with shades of blue and gold. Every light, every vibration, every hum told a story of survival, awakening, and transformation. The ship had become alive in a way that humans and aliens alike could hardly comprehend. Today was the day. The team would test the ship's ability to leave Earth's atmosphere and travel into orbit under human guidance. The stakes were higher than ever. Not only was this a test of technology, but it was also a test of trust. Trust between humans and a vessel that had once been discarded by its creators. The ground crew checked every system one last time. Sensors, energy grids, guidance signals, everything had to function perfectly. The ship's crystal core pulsed gently as if acknowledging their efforts. It was ready. Slowly, the vessel began to rise. The ground trembled slightly, but the ship moved smoothly, almost gracefully, into the air. The blue and gold patterns across its hull shifted rhythmically, responding to the team's guidance and the surrounding atmosphere. It hovered above the desert for a moment as if testing itself, then accelerated smoothly, leaving the hangar far behind. Cameras tracked every angle. The vessel darted over the desert dunes higher and faster than any aircraft on Earth. Its movement was fluid, intelligent, almost like a living creature. It didn't rely on engines or wings. It manipulated energy, gravity, and atmospheric forces effortlessly. The first real flight into open skies was flawless. The team watched in awe as the ship ascended into the stratosphere. Clouds swirled around it, lightning streaked across the horizon, and the sun reflected off its polished hull. The vessel adapted to the changing conditions with remarkable precision. Every gust of wind, every fluctuation in temperature, every subtle shift in pressure was met with instant correction. As the ship entered the upper atmosphere, the energy readings reached levels the scientists had only dreamed of. The crystal core glowed with unmatched intensity, sending pulses into the surrounding air. Satellites detected an enormous energy field expanding around the vessel, bending light slightly and affecting instruments nearby. It was alive, aware, and in complete harmony with the planet. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for: orbital flight. The team activated the final sequence of guidance signals, carefully tuned to interact with the ship's energy patterns. Slowly, the vessel accelerated, breaking free from Earth's gravity with ease. The ground crew and scientists held their breath as they watched the first human-guided alien starship enter orbit. From orbit, the Earth looked small, fragile, and beautiful. The ship's lights reflected against the blackness of space, pulsing like a heartbeat against the stars. The humans aboard the control center knew they had achieved something extraordinary. What had been abandoned, broken, and considered worthless by an advanced alien civilization was now a living, intelligent, unstoppable starship, and it belonged to humanity. The alien fleet, which had observed the ship years earlier, reappeared at the edge of the solar system. They had watched humanity awaken their lost vessel, and they returned to see its full potential realized. But this time there was no standoff, no challenge. The fleet maintained distance, observing respectfully. They recognized that the ship had changed, that its loyalty had shifted, and that humans had become its partners. From orbit, the ship sent out a signal, a message of peace and readiness. The communication was not words but energy, a complex sequence of pulses and patterns that conveyed intelligence, awareness, and intent. It was a bridge between species, a message that humanity was no longer naive, that they had the creativity, patience, and courage to wield advanced technology responsibly. Back on Earth, the research team watched the displays, hearts pounding. They had done it. Humanity had awakened the Starship, restored it, and learned to cooperate with it. The vessel was no longer just a relic of the past. It was a symbol of what could happen when determination, intelligence, and care came together. The ship began to move beyond Earth's orbit, exploring the solar system under human guidance. Its sensors scanned planets, moons, and asteroids, mapping energy fields and gravitational patterns. Every discovery was shared with the team on Earth, who marveled at the complexity and beauty of the universe through the eyes of a vessel that had once been considered worthless. As the weeks passed, humanity learned more from the ship than they ever could have imagined. Its energy systems inspired clean power sources that could supply entire cities. Its materials inspired metals that repaired themselves. Its understanding of gravity and motion suggested possibilities for faster-than-light travel. What had been a single abandoned vessel had now become a foundation for human progress on a scale never seen before. But the greatest lesson was not technological. It was a lesson about potential. The ship had been discarded because others had judged it by its damage, by its imperfection. Humanity had looked beyond that. They had seen value where others saw waste, potential where others saw failure, and life where others saw dead metal. In doing so, they had awakened not just the ship but a new era for themselves. The aliens, observing from a distance, seemed to understand this. Their fleet remained in orbit, no longer threatening but acknowledging the achievement. In their way, they were teaching humanity something as well, that even the most advanced beings could underestimate the value of what they abandoned, and that growth often came from patience, care, and creativity. The desert base continued its work, coordinating the ship's missions and recording its discoveries. Humans had learned to communicate with the vessel through energy pulses, light patterns, and vibration sequences. Over time, they understood the ship's rhythms, its moods, and its preferences. It became more than technology. It became a partner, a teacher, and a guide. Eventually, humanity made its first coordinated journey beyond the solar system, guided by the ship. It was cautious, slow, and careful, but every step brought new discoveries, new wonders, and new possibilities. Planets that had never been observed, energy fields that defied understanding, and phenomena that seemed impossible were recorded, studied, and celebrated. The ship had become unstoppable not because it was weaponized but because it was alive, intelligent, and guided by humans who had learned to respect its capabilities. The story of the ship spread quietly among the team, who shared it as a tale of hope and determination. The lesson was simple. Even what others discard can be transformed into something extraordinary. What had once been considered worthless by aliens had become humanity's greatest achievement. The ship continued to grow, adapt, and learn. It responded to challenges, explored new worlds, and safeguarded humanity in ways no one had imagined. Its energy field could shield entire bases, its propulsion could reach unimaginable speeds, and its intelligence could solve problems beyond human comprehension. And yet, despite all its power, the ship remained connected to those who had awakened it. It responded to care, to guidance, and to respect. It had learned that strength was not only about energy or technology, but also about understanding, cooperation, and trust. Finally, as the sun set over the desert base one evening, the lights of the ship glowed softly in the twilight. The scientists, engineers, and pilots watched in quiet awe, knowing that they had not just restored a vessel, but had changed the course of history. Humanity had made the impossible happen. They had taken what was abandoned, broken, and considered worthless, and turned it into something unstoppable, alive and magnificent. The ship, once forgotten by the stars, now had a home, a purpose, and a new story to tell. Humanity had awakened not just a starship, but the limitless potential of what could be achieved when patience, creativity, and courage came together. The desert was quiet, but in the skies above, the lights of the awakened starship pulsed like a heartbeat. Steady, powerful, and unstoppable, humanity had proven itself capable of greatness, and the stars were now within reach. The ship had been abandoned once, but it would never be forgotten again.